Welcome to Behind the Beer, where we go behind the scenes to discover the people and roles of producing the product we all love, craft beer. Now, here is your host, Ernest Stevenson.
Thank you, Henry. I'm here today with Chad Henderson
Hey,
of
how's it going?
NoDa Brewing Company in Charlotte, North Carolina. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Awesome, man. Awesome. Just getting through the holidays.
Yep. They're very cloudy.
Yeah.
So lots to do.
Awesome. All right. Tell me a little bit about your craft beer journey and how you came to love craft beer and to brew craft beer.
It's a long story, but it's not a complicated one. Basically, right. I didn't grow up around alcohol really, and my household, my mom and my dad weren't really drinkers or anything like that, and I was a pretty reclusive kid up until I got into college, and I was like, oh, well, this is a cool thing to get involved with. But I started helping some friends homebrew in college, and right around that same time, the Pop the Cap initiative happened in North Carolina. Okay. So the ABV of beer produced and sold shot up from, I believe it was 6% was the cap, and it went to 15%. Mm-hmm. So there was a big influx of different breweries coming in and other local breweries popping up and whatnot because it was a lot less restrictive. And that just really sparked my interest. And I'm a nerd at heart and really loved science and all that sort of stuff. And I was in school for the medical profession, but never for any good reason. I just liked science and I wanted to help people, which is not why you should go into anything. It's too vague. But yeah, I went into the medical industry, but right before I graduated, I realized that that's what I wanted to do. And at the time, back in 2007, there really wasn't a whole lot of avenues you could go for education with it. And I just started helping some friends put together homebrew recipes. And I was like, I'm just going to try this and get involved with everything that I can find in the communities and stuff like that. And I moved to Charlotte shortly after and had been homebrewing and just really kind of ran the whole homebrew thing into the ground and got involved with clubs and started helping organize like social meetups when it comes down to, anything craft beer related. And Charlotte was kind of ready to blow up with the craft beer world at that point. And after a few years of being here and just brewing like crazy and talking to everyone that knew everything more than I did, which is pretty much everybody, and really taking some hard notes and meeting a lot of really cool people because of all those connections I made and kind of just putting in the groundwork. My name started circulating around and to a lot to random people. And a couple that had decided they wanted to open a brewery, Todd and Susie Ford, who I had met through the homebrew community, they decided they wanted to open up a brewery, and my name cycled over to them several times as a person that would probably be a good fit. One, we had already kind of met a couple times. We liked what each other were brewing and all that sort of stuff, and it just was a good fit in general. And they were like, the people were like, we gotta find a brewer, and like, when Chad's crazy enough to do that, so. I've been wanting to try anything that would just get my foot in the door for something. And yeah, they asked me to come in with them on the ground floor, and I walked through right after they did at the old location just a mile away from here, and helped build them out helped build out the facility with our contractor back in 2011, or like the spring of 2011, and we opened up in October of 2011 and just never looked back. And on year 3 of us being open, they invited me to be co-owner of the company, and then head brewer and co-owner, head brewer the entire time, but co-owner as well ever since then. So it's been pretty amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, I was going to ask you what your current role was with now.
Yeah, hasn't changed on the business card for quite a while. So
right, and I should have mentioned we were at the north end location.
Right, yeah, on North Tryon. So we actually have 2 addresses here. It's technically 150 West 32nd Street and 2921 North Tryon Street.
I noticed that.
Yeah, one will put you to the front of the building where the production site is, and we'll just shoo you around the corner. And then the other one will actually put you in the parking lot where the tap room and everything is. But it's a great facility. We're expanding it out now. We started it with 35,000 square feet. Then we're almost done with a 20,000 square foot expansion to it. That's what these guys coming in here are doing and shutting the door a bunch of times and stuff. So sorry about that. But we're almost done.
No one's been back here the whole time.
Yeah, right?
No.
Yeah. But we'll be 55,000 square feet here hopefully in the next month or two, and all the expansions for extra storage and whatnot. So one thing you learn in the beer industry is you'll find a bottleneck somewhere. So our original place was 11,000 square feet, and we still operate out of there. basically as a tap room and extra storage. And we had a 15-barrel brew house to start off there, and we ran that into the ground, running 4 or 5 batches a day, 5-6 days out of the week. And around year 3, we decided to move 1 mile up the road. So we are still like really NoDa adjacent, which is the North Davidson area. So it's just too cool for just 2 letters. And yeah, so it's we're the second oldest still operating brewery in Charlotte and whatnot. And we really came in at a great time and had awesome support from the community. And we are fortunate enough now to be fully distributed and self-distributed as well for the immediate Charlotte area, but fully distributed for all of North and South Carolina. So we've been really ideally like planting our roots really deep. We're doing about 23,000 barrels last year. And hopefully be a little bit more than that this year as well. So we really like the idea of playing the roots deep instead of spreading them really thin and wide.
Right.
And this whole building and the expansion coming on will hopefully let us achieve our next year and years going on goals and whatnot. Right. So
nice. Yeah, actually, you're answering some of the questions I had.
Yeah.
That's perfect. I love it.
I never get asked any questions or anything.
So many. And I moved to Charlotte in 1995, so there was no craft brewers at that time.
Right.
And then I really didn't know that there was a craft beer scene until probably around 2017.
Right.
But as I got into craft brewing, a lot of people said that NoDa really put Charlotte on the map as a beer city with hop, drop, and roll.
Yeah, I definitely think it, itch some ears and perk people up to the fact that we're not just a big city that has a few breweries in it, but we actually can make some highly acknowledgeable beers. And so in 2014, we won the World Beer Cup for American IPA Gold, which no one should ever expect to win an IPA across the board. Like it's such a huge category.
Yeah.
And I was our sole representative there when we won it. And right after that, our sales went up like 350%, and they really just skyrocketed up from there. And we had to really start. I mean, it was a beautiful nightmare, because while it was amazing to win it, and it did a lot for the scene, I hope. I don't want to like take credit for it or anything like that, but I definitely think that it brought a lot of eyes to Charlotte that weren't there prior to. I actually told Vinny Caruso, the first time I met him, that the biggest accomplishment of my career to that point was the fact that people were trading 1-to-1 hop drops for Pliny's. And so and he was like, okay, that's cool. And I was like, okay, thanks, nice to meet you. So totally fanboyed out on him. Yeah. But yeah, it's just one of those things where
who was that guy?
Yeah, exactly. Just interrupt him in my meal. But it's one of those things where a city in North Carolina to take a gold in the largest category that is a category that is usually and rightfully so dominated by breweries that are all over the place, or like everywhere else, especially on the West Coast and things like that, where the style really manifested. For us to win that, I think brought a lot of eyes to the area, and Charlotte has only grown, I think, with that momentum and everything. I mean, there was it did bring tons of scrutiny and stuff like that, which it should. Whenever you put a gold medal thing on any can or bottle, people should rightfully scrutinize it and whatnot. So it made our job harder, and also made our job harder to allocate hops. And, when you win a gold like that, and the sales go up through the roof. And most of the time when you win a medal, I mean, it can give your brand recognition, and it's great and all that sort of stuff. And it really is more so like a morale booster. It very rarely makes sales of that beer go crazy, but there's certain categories that when you win one, it really blows it up. And IPA is the like epitome of that.
Right.
And so we had already planned out how much of hop drop we were going to do for the rest of the year, and then suddenly we win World Beer Cup in April, and it's like, oh my God, we can't make up all this. So we're just looking for hops left and right, and had to allocate. We made a lot of people mad because we're like, okay, we can either run out of hop drop because we don't have enough hops to make it, by June, or we can only make 90 barrels of hop drop every single month and just try to spread it as thin as we can, So a lot of people were like, well, we're going to shortchange for this. That is like, we either have to do one or the other. Like this is officially like our flagship beer at this point. So like, we don't want to run out of it, right as the summer starts. So, it came with a bunch of trials and tribulations and stuff like that. But at the same time, it gave us an immense amount of renown. And I think it kind of helped elevate the Charlotte beer scene to at least get more attention. And when you get it's just, it's the same idea as like, more breweries opening up around here gives us more of a reason to try to really dial our stuff in. Not because we want to compete against them, but it's because like the standard raises. When you have more eyes looking into the area, the standard raises up, because people are paying more attention to everything. So
absolutely,
it makes you tighten down and buckle down more, but it also gives a lot more potential for growth for the area.
Now, were you guys doing distribution then, or was it just all
self-distribution still? Yeah, we at that point too. We were also, I believe, with Comer in South Carolina. We signed on with Comer pretty early on. I think by year 2. So it was right before that point. And also we had like Fort Mill, Rock Hill, and Columbia that we were distributing down in South Carolina. But basically it was just the greater Mecklenburg County area and then in those areas of South Carolina.
Okay, cool. And I was also thinking Beautiful Nightmare would be a great song for a heavy metal song.
Yes, it would be.
Or a great title for a heavy metal song.
Yes, I like it. Good name for a beer too. A lot of good metal names are good beer names.
Yes, so. Absolutely. So, well, what are you drinking there?
I have a little bit of Radio Haze left. That's one of my first long-term project, baby. And when I was ordering a Slurp Surf and OA came in through here and they popped the keg like right as I ordered it. So I was like, I'll go with the radio. So I have like certain styles that are my like spend over a year R&Ding and whatnot. And radio was like the first one that really took a lot of time to try to nail in, because I want to really do a hazy right. And at the time, hazies were really coming up hard in the Charlotte area and whatnot. And I was on the fence about them for a while. But it was mostly just because of like, there was a big discrepancy of how to go about making them. And then Dr. John Paul May had done a lot of really wonderful work and presentations on like really surmising like the factors that are really important in making a good hazy. And not just a good hazy, but a good stable hazy, not one that's reliant on yeast suspension and things like that, but actually like, polyphenol interactions and with prolamins and things of that nature. And so I was trying to couple all that together and then make a beer that wasn't going to try to eclipse the price point of what we would have to spend to make hop drop. So it's like, it's not that it was going to be like an inexpensive hazy, but which is a oxymoron and it's all right, but not to be like an insanely overpriced beer, we just throw every hop that we have in the cooler in it. So it took me a long time to dial it in, and it's always been like a household favorite of mine and stuff. And the Slurp series is kind of like the next manifestation past that, where we really try to lay into the juice factor, and it utilizes thiol developments, which is again a newer, not new technology or anything like that, but like a newer understanding of how those sorts of small nuances are interacting with it. That's the fun with the hop world, and now also kind of the yeast world as well, is like they're always finding new ways that minor manifestations and changes that you can put into the brew process can get you a completely different manifested product at the end point of it. So yeah, it's Radio Haze. It's what I have in the glass. Yeah.
Now you did a whole series of experimental before Radio Haze, correct?
Yeah. We didn't name them anything in general. It was just a bunch of different hazy IPAs that we just threw together just to, see what water profile we wanted, what really we needed grain bill wise, what do we need for timing the dry hops, how many dry hops, pounds per barrel were needed to hit the flavor profile we wanted and the appearance that we wanted and all that sort of stuff. So all those sorts of factors where it's like, you have to make a list of what you absolutely have to have. And then you find out like your budgetary line of like, how far can you go up from that? And then you try and you find what's going to be the best impact for the buck, so that's how I approach it, because as a business, you have to, like, it's great to go like, we're going to go crazy on this beer, but like, that's not repeatable. Then it's, for a beer that's supposed to be a year round beer for us, it needs to make sense on a financial and a business side and whatnot. And also like, I don't want to kill our staff in the process of, brewing the thing. So, you have to look at like, what do you absolutely need to do to make the style like fit in the box that you want it to be? And then what's the highest bar that you can put for the budget to meet where you want it to be in the market? And that gap that you get, then you like say like, okay, well, let's spend the rest of this money to hit that budget on excessive dry hop or a whirlpool hopper or using this type of grain, this type of yeast. So, you try to figure out how can you meet both criteria, like beating the style that you're trying to do, and then accelerate it up to the point where you're actually still making sense in the bubble of the business side of what you're trying to, bring out to the market. And you can always have the one-offs that are extreme and like make no sense for production at all and all that sort of stuff. But as far as just trying to make something that's a mainstay and something that's going to be a part of the lineup for a long period of time, like it makes no sense for us to go like, we got a hazy out. There's like, great, like how much is it a 4-pack? It's like $35 a 4-pack. It's like, have fun with that. Like it needs to be right in there in that same like approachable price point. And that's where the slurp side stuff comes in, is trying to make it an even more flexible price point and whatnot, while still offering that really great juicy hop character and whatnot. So
I won't bring up what I've had to pay for a hop drop and roll for a can out there in the city.
Oh yeah, was it in a venue?
Yeah.
They're always the same price that we sell on this. When we can't tell them what the price at that point. So yeah, no, I've literally had shivers up my back going to like, especially concert venues.
Oh yeah,
they're the worst. It's just like, it's like, are you kidding me? like, does that come with the case or is that just the one can? So it's the one can and we cut it in half. You just get the bottom portion.
Yeah, awesome. Oh, and also speaking of marketing, talking about that experimental line leading up to Radio Haze, I think you also paired that with Woody and Wilcox.
Yes, correct. Yeah, Woody and Wilcox have been a big partner with us for a number of years. We've done a bunch of different brands with them, and it's been one of our best partnerships, just because they don't really have an agenda for anything as far as like the beer is concerned. It's just simply they wanted to be associated with the brewery. They liked what we were doing, and they're like, we just would love to have our name on a beer.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the extent of it. So over the years, it's been multiple different iterations of beers. And again, trying to design different things and seeing what's going to hit in the market. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, in general, not just now in this kind of rough past year and an upcoming year that we're going through, but just in general, the last 10 years and then some, is trying to figure out what's going to be the new thing. So the Woody and Wilcox brand has been on like fruited West Coast IPAs. It's been on wheat beers that have been like dry hopped, and it's been on session solo hop, like smash beer sort of concept, where we rotate the hops out and everything like that. That was the hop experiment that we did with Woody and Wilcox and all. And
that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, and so that one was great, but it just was kind of hard to, it was hard to track.
Yeah.
Because if you had some cans out there for a while that was part of like an older batch and they were featuring Mosaic, and the next batch was coming out as featuring Galaxy, the idea was that it was the same session pale that would have the same bittering hop in it, but in the whirlpool and the dry hop, it would be a featured hop. And the whole idea of it being kind of like, hey, we're trying to educate you guys on what a whirlpool and dry hop of this hop would be like, and everything. Because a lot of people just write, not just write, but they use different hops and they advertise those different hops. So the average consumer, you're just not going to tell the difference between a Centennial and a Cascade or a Citra or a Galaxy or a Mosaic or a Saz or whatever, or Zotz, however you're supposed to say it. It's
sort of both ways.
Yes. Gotta say it both ways. Don't want to offend anybody. But yeah, so we tried to do that, and but it became a tracking nightmare, and as our sales grew and everything like that, it suddenly kind of combobulated into like no one knew what with everybody, because you had to look at the bottom of the can, and that was another thing that I was like, this is great. I want people to look at the bottom of the can. I want them to see the born on dates. I'm trying to try to educate, like, drink it fresh. Yes. Don't let it sit around and all that sort of stuff, especially with IPAs. But it just got to the point where it was just really hard to keep a consistent inventory, and we were having people complain about. Like, I had this beer 2 months ago and now I had it over here and it was bad. I was like, well, was it the same beer? And like, what do you mean? I was like, look at the bottom of the can. And so then when we decided to do the hazy, I finally got the recipe in with the hazy. I didn't have a name for it. And the idea popped up. I honestly don't remember who brought it up, but they're like, what if we just make this the new Woody and Wilcox, and we just kind of lean onto the radio thing? And that's really how Radio Haze came to be. So that's what I was, and they're just really good guys. And Woody's got his own beer club and stuff, and they come up and do events with us and everything like that. And I've done like events at their house and stuff like that. So they're really, really nice guys. I love hanging out with them. They don't come around often enough because they're super fun. So.
Yeah. And by the way, for people who don't know, Woody and Wilcox is a morning radio show station here in Charlotte. I think they're syndicated now.
I believe so.
Yeah. So. All right. Let's see. What am I drinking here?
That is the Captain Peanut Butter's Tropical Excursion. So Captain Peanut Butter's Chocolate Revenge is our kind of a not small, but like a specialty one-off release. You could kind of call it a limited seasonal of a imperial porter that's brewed with excessive amounts of cocoa nibs, about 150 pounds in the hop back, at per batch of 45 barrel batch. And then we also do peanut butter in it. And the Tropical Excursion is a side pull that I did off of it that is fermented on Bonanza yeast, which is a yeast that is done by Omega Yeast Labs up in Chicago, where they take their Hefeweizen yeast strain and they found the gene that produces phenolics, and they turn the gene limiting off. So the only expression that the yeast give as far as esters and phenols are esters, and specifically isoamyl acetate. So it gives like the banana ester flavor. So it's basically like a banana chocolate covered peanut butter beer. So it's 9.2% alcohol,
Nice.
big imperial porter. It has that. The Tropical Excursion version has that cool banana effect going on with it. The other,
I'm saying, I think Elvis would like this.
yeah, yes, he would. Especially if you put it on a burger somehow.
Yeah.
The other one is Captain Peanut Butter's Foggy Morning After. So this is last year's Captain Peanut Butter's.
Love that name.
Yeah, right. Captain Peanut Butter's of last year 2022 batch, and it is aged for 13 months in Oaklore barrels. Which Oaklore is a local distillery, so it's whiskey barrels. So it has a much more subdued peanut butter character because it's got a lot of that whiskey character on it as well. So we really wanted to have a couple of different iterations. So on draft right now, we have the normal Captain Peanut Butter's Chocolate Revenge, then the Tropical Excursion, and the Foggy Morning After as kind of some, variant iterations. And this beer is, I guess you could call it sort of in line with a pastry stout, but it doesn't have any lactose or anything like that. They're not sickly sweet. And there's nothing wrong with those. I've always been kind of more of a fan of like that, still being able to enjoy a pint of it if you want to. Like I love a lot of those big, crazy pastry stouts, but I honestly, like after I get about 4 ounces in them, I'm just like, I gotta take a break. It's just they're true dessert beer.
This is it's not thick. It's drinks like a normal porter.
Yeah,
but
their
you get
terminal
that whiskey
gravity. Their terminal gravity is right around like 4 Plato, like 4.5 Plato, right around there. So it's got some meat to it, but it's not excessive.
What does a typical day look like for you here at the brewery?
So it really depends on the day, which is great. That's one of the things I love about the brewing industry is that you can, when you're in your rhythm and stuff, you can have a lot of stuff that has to get done, but ultimately you can have a lot of variation that happens day to day. For me, right now, a lot of it is coming in, doing QA/QC work in the lab, and then basically following up on what's going on the brew stand. If I'm brewing on the brew stand, then I'm usually doing the second shift on it. But a lot of times now I have 2 other brewers that are with me, my lead brewer, Eric, and then we also have Rebecca, who's a brewer. And so most of the time we do as like a double shift. So one starts, one finishes. If I'm part of that line, then I'll either come in the early shift on it or go into the latter. It also depends on the season. Like right now we're kind of through the slow season. So some days we'll do like a trip, like we did a triple batch yesterday, but today it was a single. So, it just depends on the day itself, but we're in the middle of the higher seasons and stuff like that. When we're in like spring and summer, we'll do a lot more consistent triple batch brewing. So if I'm on the stand, then I'll come in around like 6, and then I'll go on the stand sometime between like 7:30 and 8. Or if I'm doing the morning shift, I'll come in at like 1. I don't do a whole lot of morning shifts right now, though, to be honest. And if I'm not on the stand, then I'm more than likely probably doing an R&D batch. And so it's a mix of stuff throughout the day, whether most of the time I'm in around 6 for the majority of the time, whether I'm going to go on the stand at some point or not. But basically you're going to run until probably around like 4 o'clock, brewing either R&D or on the big system, or doing stuff with the pilot system or transfers or dry hoppings or, just random stuff of that nature. Depending on the day too, I may also have a fair amount of meetings. So there is no typical day. There's not like, there's no like normal flow with everything. So it just depends on what's going on. Sometimes it's, collecting data, or it's again, doing a bunch of different meetings. Cause I'm also as co-owner, an executive level. So, and there's a lot of strategy meetings and marketing meetings, and I have to be there. I'm kind of like the spokesman for the beer in those meetings. And then also in, the media side of it as well. So it just kind of depends. And then sometimes on slower days, it's like, let's get down and actually design some of these ideas to see if, what to do. And so like a lot of the stuff at the R&D is stuff that I want to have fun with, but also they have to ultimately have some sort of a goal, actually show a product or a process that either a product that we don't currently have or is new to us, or it's a process to try to get a better efficiency or a new take on something that we've already been working on. So it just kind of depends on what I'm trying to do on that front. But I'll brew on the R&D system anywhere up to almost every day of the week, or just do passive work on it and whatnot. So it just depends on the day. There's not a lot of typical days now. Back in the day when we were not as staffed in, not as much in the rhythm, it was a little bit more hectic. But I'm luckily not in the early shift or having to pull up a cot or sleep on some grain bags and stuff like in the very early days anymore. So
that's good.
Yeah.
And speaking of marketing, it just occurred to me, talking about slow season, how much of an impact does dry January?
A lot. And also sober October. And I just want them to stop rhyming stuff at this point. I know dry January really doesn't rhyme that much, but it's a hard month. It's like you see sales go down really heavily in January, and they're slow to pick back up. They start slowing down in the end of the year, and then they go really dead in January, and then I don't know. And there isn't also a consistent, like every year it's exactly this percentage of a drop, but it's a significant drop. Like it's a hard month. For sure. And this past year and then this year is hitting breweries really hard. So, I mean, I have no problem with people trying to take a break off of drinking and things like that and do stuff for their own health or lifestyle and that. I just don't think it should be as celebrated as like a trend to do. It should be celebrated in your own life as in like, I'm getting a handle on this and this is a step for me to do. Like, that's fine. Just do all that. But it just seems very... I don't know. And I'm coming at it obviously from very strong bias on one side. It just seems relatively counterintuitive to people that a lot of times will like promote like, I support local, I support blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, but I'm also going to starve them actively, by just refusing to support their product. And it's it's a lot of people think that because we have a bunch of tanks laying around and stuff like that we're sitting amongst and everything that they're like, and you see us in the grocery store, they're like, oh, well, they're fine. They're doing fine. This is a very small, low margin business. It's not easy to get through. And just because you can grow, it doesn't mean that you're making bank. Right. And it's like we don't have a massive staff. That staff is relying on, consistent work and consistent demand and whatnot. And that flux is just, it's not a new phenomenon, but it's not like a very long lasting one. You would think that January being cold and people were hunkering down a little bit, you would think they would be almost more into having the beers and everything like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Dark beer needs to come back way stronger too, by the way. Please support your dark beers.
I agree.
But yeah, it definitely hits hard. But we've been trying to counteract it by also diversifying our lineup and doing the hop 2Os. It's essentially kind of like our non-alcoholic option, but it's not beer in general. I always have had an issue with a lot of the non-alcohol beers. Not that I have an issue with them existing. I just have never enjoyed any of them. Right. And I've tried brewing with like the non-alcohol producing yeast, and I've tried boiling out alcohol, and just not a big fan of it. Yeah. And so I think the only real answer for it would be if we invested in a lot of extra equipment to try to get there. And it's like, and even then, it's like you really have to completely flip your mentality of how to design the beer altogether. And it's not a simple, straightforward process. You just can't put hop drop through a dealkalizer and it's like, it's fine. It tastes just like hop drop and no booze. It doesn't work that way at all. Yeah. Excuse me. But so the hop 2O is a carbonated water that features hops of various types, and it's paired with fruit. And so it's kind of like a fruited water. So I drink flavored water like it's going out of style. Like I absolutely will go. My wife and I go through cases of it every week, and so I was totally into that idea, and I've been trying to play around with that for a while. And every time I had done them, it worked well. And so we have a couple different variations that we do, and we're growing in that sector. But the challenge with that is the fact that it's not beer. So in the accounts that we already have, where we're set in, for the beer, it doesn't go in there. It has to. Now we have to fight against Dasani and and all that. Right, it's a whole different world. Right. So it's been taking a while to get mass exposure for it, but it's. I think we're going to get a good amount of growth here in 2024. Yeah. From the work that our sales team has been moving in on whatnot, and we've got some expansion throughout the state with it as well. So it's hop 2O. Nice. We have things like lemon lime they're always the fruit first, so people kind of understand the fruit a little more, and then it's the hop. So it's like lemon, lime, citra, and grapefruit galaxy, and things like that. So
okay,
yeah,
cool, awesome. Yeah, and you're starting to see a trend towards a lot of different types of not only non-alcoholic drinks but alcoholic drinks other than beer.
Yeah, absolutely. RTDs are really big right now, and yeah, I mean, seltzers kind of went hard and then kind of teetered off and whatnot. And it's that game of constantly trying to figure out what's coming around the corner, and you have to. All you can really do is guess and just like you hear the whispers and what people are talking about, and no one knows until it happens. But it is annoying because we have. I think started to, as an industry, rest on our laurels a little bit because for the longest time, craft beer especially has just been on this steady incline.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's had a lot of flatline like years, but it wasn't like we had a big dip.
Right.
This is the first time frame in my professional exposure to it for the past 13 plus years. So we're 12 years old as a brewery, but obviously I was kind of involved in the industry prior to that.
Mm-hmm.
But so looking like 16ish years of like kind of keeping my pulse on it or whatever. This is the first time in that whole existence that it seems like there's a real feeling of decline of it, not just exposure, but just like excitement around it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hardest thing for me to do. Like, 'cause a lot of people like ask me like, well, what are you going to do about that? What do you think is causing it? I'm like, I don't think it's one thing. I don't think it's one thing at all. I think it's a multifaceted, cultural thing. Just the environment that we're under right now. You can blame COVID all you want to, but I really think it's just the way that people communicate right now. It's just not as cool and prevalent to be into craft beer now as it was beforehand. I actually joked with somebody. I was like, the best we need to do is get all the breweries in the greater Mecklenburg area. We need to take any sort of extra cash that we have laying around, in mountains and heaps that they're just it's endless cash amounts, and all invest it into a production company and make a whole series of really awesome TV shows and movies and whatnot. In which case, they're constantly showing how cool it is to have beer again and stuff. It's like I joke I'm a big fan of the show Peaky Blinders. And I'm like, Peaky Blinders probably did more for the cigarette industry than any other show in the last 20 years, just because they're just constantly smoking
whiskey.
Yeah, until the last season, and all the main character does is talk about how he doesn't drink anymore. Yeah, they're like, we get it, Tommy, you're clean, calm down. But yeah,
it's like those dry January people.
Yeah, we get it. Is that dry January is the vegan of drinkers. Hot take.
There you go. All right. What do people most misunderstand about you?
There's a lot, I'm sure. I don't know. I haven't asked anybody recently. That's a good question. I was completely caught off guard from that one. I think that people outside of outside of our walls here that don't work for us, they may, in terms of the brewery and stuff like that, they may have a misconception that I'm set in my ways of how to do things, and that's not the case at all. I'm very open to new takes and new ideas, and I have no pride in sitting on a concept just because it was my concept, if that makes any sense. Right. I want everything to be better. I want it to be better for our company. I want it to be better for our industry. I'm open for a lot of stuff. Feasibly, the involvement levels that I think I'm able to get involved with now at our scale, but also at my appreciation for life and being not just the brewer of NoDa Brewing Company and actually having a wife and now having a son and stuff like that. I can't be as involved as I once was. And that's for my own mental health as well as my family's health.
Absolutely.
But all that being said, I'm a big fan of other breweries, and I'm a big fan of being involved in collaborations and things like that. I can't constantly do them like I would like to do, just because it just doesn't make time sense and stuff like that. But yeah, I think that a lot of people assume that like I'm just like I come in and I leave. And I think there's also some people that assume that I just never leave the beer world and that I just am constantly involved. Because back in the early days, I was just constantly, when I was done with work, I would go out to Salute Beer Shop or go to Brawley's or go to Duckworth, and so I would just hop around constantly and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But that's easy to do when you're the only guy in the household that you have to take care of. But yeah, and that lifestyle catches up to you. Like you get tired for a while. So I guess that's what people think. I don't know. I assume that's what I don't know. Maybe you could do a poll on what people think. I have no idea. I don't know. It's just a
poll on Spotify.
Yeah, it's also one of those things too. Is like I still love this. I think that's another thing that a lot of people think with brewers or head brewers and stuff is that we get shaded with stuff, and that's not at all the case. Every time my wife and I go to any area, I'm like, where's the local brewery? I want to go hang out there and talk to people. Like I absolutely love it. Yeah. It's before we set up here, there was a couple I could tell. I was like, they're from the brewery. The dude's got a shirt on from it, and they were asking questions. They had a look. They were asking the right questions. So I immediately want to go talk to them and stuff. So like, I still love it. And as much as like, there's a lot of stuff that kind of beats you down, and then you go in and you run through the punches and all that sort of stuff, day in and day out. I still think this is the greatest job I've ever had, and it's the greatest industry I could ever worked with. And the community here is awesome and amazing and whatnot. And I don't know. I think that a lot of people see if you're at a certain level of exposure, then like you have this different mentality of like, we're set or we're done. We're going to step away from where we came from and stuff like that. But that's not the case. Like the hardest thing for me to do in my transition from say 6-7 years ago to today is just taking on more of an executive role. That's because it's not really what we started. When we started out, it was head brewery. Like I want to brew. Right. It's weird when I'm not on the brew stand for a couple weeks in a row. Like I don't like it. Even if I'm still brewing on the pilot system, I want to be up on the line. I'll throw some bags and stuff. Yeah. It's you get used to it, and like I'll be 40 in a couple months, and the body's taking its toll and everything like that. And but it's still one of those things where like I want to get in there and do it and be part of it, just like we were like, in our first year of operations and whatnot. So, I think that might be the biggest misconception is that like, this has tired me out. This really hasn't. If anything, it invigorates me. It gives me a really, good spark when I wake up. And if I got a new idea or something that could be fun or very, exciting to do in the brew house, it really gives me a lot of energy to come in. It's better than coffee. So,
yeah, absolutely. So if you could be remembered for one thing in this industry, what would it be?
I hope that it would be that I always tried to make our brand not just stand out, but to hopefully propel the scene as a whole, and and in the process of doing that was a person that was approachable from any other company or any other angle. So if you were a customer, or if you were a patron, or if you were another brewery owner or whatnot, you could always come to me to ask my opinion on something, or see if we could help you out in some way or whatnot. I want us to be a leader in the scene and the state and the region and all that sort of stuff. Not just because of what we're doing, but because of what we're able to support each other in. And I want people to look at it as like, when we were in question on this, or when we needed this or whatever, we gave Chad an email or gave him a call, and that, not that you relied on it, but it was part of the process, and I don't want to be looked at as a person that tried to shield us from the rest of the industry and the community. I want us to be, trying to rally the rest of the community around us and everything like that. So I think that would be a wonderful legacy to leave. And with that would be like innovation and things of that nature. I'm always trying to innovate, but I think that's one of those things where the creation part of it's the fun part. The hard part's picking everything up when things are down, so.
Awesome. Yeah. I've had several discussions about, craft beer used to be more community. Now it's becoming more business-like as craft breweries have grown. And So
yeah, it's hard. It's hard with that. And that's a lot of that too, I think, is the nature of when the scene was so young. A lot of it was people trying to open and get their identity established. And then I don't think we thought of it really this way either. We did actively say when we opened, they were like, congratulations, we've made it to the starting line. You know, because you work your butt off to get open and you have all these ideas and all that sort of stuff. And when you finally open those doors of it and you can actually sell that product, you get this sensation of like, you made it. And it's like, nah, the gun just sounded for the race to start, you know? So we were openly aware of that. And I think that a lot of people, they get sidetracked on the idea of starting a brewery. They don't realize the keeping one going, and keeping one going is hard to do in this industry. And just the way, the industry is as far as like a low margin, and low profits and all that sort of stuff. So it's, you have to kind of step back and take business, perspectives on things, because you are a business. Right. Like if you are just wanting to make beer for fun and don't care if you ever make a cent in it, then, get a really cool, badass homebrew system in your garage and have friends over and stuff. And I did that for a long time. Right. It wasn't that much of a badass system, but we did that all the time, and that was fulfilling for a good bit of it. But it's what I really want to do for a career. And I think that a lot of people, they think that like the soul's gone from beer because we have to go at it at a business level. But the reality of it is that you may not want to be in a business realm as a brewery, but that grocery store you want to sell for sure as crap is a business. And the distributors you're trying to get to take your product sure as crap is a business. And the restaurant's a business, and the bottle shop's a business. And so every single thing that you are relying on to get your product out is a business. And they've always operated as a business. And, they diversify themselves by having their own spin and all that sort of stuff. But like, there's this, I don't think it's a problem. I think it's one of the best things about the beer industry is like, it's so pure and it's like, grassroots and craft nature and whatnot, that I think at this point in time now, especially in the Charlotte area, people are realizing that you can't just be like, this is just a great idea and it's really fun and we want to hug everybody and give beer away for free. It's like, yeah, that's awesome. That's a great spirit to have to start out with. But you still need to have business sense. Yep. And a lot of people are having to really hammer their head through the wall of that business sense. And it comes off as in like people are getting cold and all that sort of stuff. Yes. But I don't think that's the reality. I just think, one, there's a ton of new breweries out there and it's almost impossible just to know who's at every single spot. I know it's hard for me to do that. Yeah. But I can tell you right now, like just in the last couple months, just hanging out with other people that I either slightly knew or had only met in passing or hadn't met at all, just knew the company that they were with, like just doing other collaborative efforts and stuff. The spirit of communication and collaboration is still there. It's just there's a lot more talk of like, how do we make this work logistics wise? How do we not like actually make this thing that's supposed to be fun hurt us in the long run and all that sort of stuff? So yeah, business is a cold thing. It is what it is. Money is cold, but also if you're going to be a company, you're a business, you kind of have to do those sorts of things as well. And I think there will be a time when the scales balance back out. Right now, it does seem like a lot of people are leaning harder on business because a lot of people are realizing that, this isn't just you can't, like, there's Patton Oswalt does that joke where he's like, there's certain towns where if you grew up there and you move out into the real world, like you're like, what do you mean I can't pay for a sandwich with a song? It's like, no, you can't. You can't. It's like, what do you mean the streets aren't paved in marijuana? It's like, no, that's not how it is. So it's, I think that a lot of people realize that while you can have these great ideas and have this awesome product idea, you still need to put everything as a business first. Because the reality is right now, having an amazing product is not the thing that's going to make your business successful. It's essential for the other parts to fall in line, but just having an awesome product is just the start. You need a lot of other pieces to fall into place.
Awesome. So what's the best compliment that you've ever received?
Oh man.
In the industry.
It's I'm thankful that I have had quite a lot of really awesome ones. There was one, and I've had a couple different iterations of it, but I remember the first one. There was a lady that was a regular back at our old spot, and she came up to me. There was a documentary that a good friend of mine made over a period of time that was kind of documenting the first couple years of our existence, starting on year 2, basically. And we had an unveiling at a theater in Uptown and whatnot. And we were there, and she came up, and I just knew her as a regular and whatnot. And I was like, oh, that's so cool that you came out to this. And she like gave me a big hug, and she had her family with her. And so she goes, honest to God, your beer changed the entire way I look at beer in general. She's like, I think it was Ghost Hop. She's like, when I tried your Ghost Hop beer and then went to Pop, Drop, and Roll and whatnot, she's like, you're the way that you guys are making beer made me look at beer a different way, made me want to drink craft beer, but more importantly, made me realize that you can put like soul behind a product. She's like, so I had to come here to watch it. And I was like, that's the nicest thing you could ever say to me. So, and that's the thing that I've said for years, is that what makes craft beer isn't about how many barrels you make a year, or how little barrels you make a year, or how big or small your staff is. It's just the fact that you make things with heart. That's all it is, And so that she literally like encapsulated like everything that got me into this industry with just that quick statement. And I've never forgot that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to find that documentary one of these days.
Oh, I can give you one. I got.
Oh, there you go.
We got copies of it.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Just remind me about it. I'll get you one.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Because I've known about it for quite some time.
Yeah, it's like 30 minutes long. It's good. It's solid.
Awesome. So what's an insult that you've received that you're especially proud of?
That I'm proud of?
Yeah.
I think someone said something. I get frequently, and it's not even really that much of an insult. This is a cop out just because I can't think of anything better. But I've had people literally like give beer back, and they'd be like, "It doesn't taste as boozy as you guys say it does." I'm like, "Thanks." I'm not upset that the 10% IPA you just pulled back didn't taste boozy enough. That was the whole idea. So yeah.
That's the ones that we call dangerous.
Yes. And I understand that. But like, if you're asking for what's your highest alcohol beer for the idea of like, I want the highest alcohol, like, just go take a shot somewhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. Like,
absolutely.
Like, there's no shame in it. Like, it's all good. Liquor exists for a reason,
alcohol,
man.
There's other options.
Yeah.
If you want flavor, then
yeah. If you want to sip a 16 ouncer of something, like, don't expect it to hit like vodka. Like, it's not supposed to do that.
Yep. Awesome.
You'll thank me tomorrow morning.
So if you could go back and give your 18-year-old some advice, what would it be?
Get involved. And generally, it would be get involved physically in as much stuff as you can. Get off the couch. Get healthy. Take stuff apart and put it back together again as much as you can. And grab your dad and tell him to go to help you learn how to take a car apart, stuff like that. That's one of the biggest regrets. I loved my father to death and everything, but one of the biggest things I regret is that I didn't have a lot of mechanical experiences with him and whatnot, because he just did everything, and I just was like, I'll just be inside and do whatever I want. I did chores and stuff like that, but like there's a lot of practical stuff that I wish I had learned from him. The other thing I probably would do is tell on a professional level would be, like, whatever you think that you're interested in, find out everything that you can about it, but on an analytical level, not just as in trying to consume data. Because that's one of the things about me that has carried me on to now, is that like, if I get really into something, I want to know everything about it, but applying that knowledge is a different thing altogether. And so thankfully when beer came around, I was already kind of acclimated into that, but I was a good student, but being a good student is not a good participator in the world. Just learning a bunch of stuff doesn't really mean anything. Right. Acting upon knowledge is a completely different thing. And I didn't know that until I really kind of got into college, because, all the way up until high school is just like, just be able to answer the questions on the test and you'll be fine. Just like, that's not applied knowledge, Right. And thankfully I had a really cool service fraternity that I was part of. It was a co-ed service fraternity called Alpha Phi Omega. We did a bunch of service projects, and it really taught me a lot for work ethic and just getting out and actively doing, as opposed to just learning about stuff, Yeah. And I would tell my 18-year-old self to, like just because you know something doesn't mean you know how it works legitimately. And you should have opinions on how to change how it works and things of that nature. So, yeah.
Tell me about the 3 most influential people in your life.
My father definitely was the first. He taught me not only how to not be afraid to experience new stuff in life, but also how to treat other people and treat other people with respect, and realize that when you think you have an idea of what someone's going through, you probably don't, and to try to get to the bottom of that. I had a martial arts teacher when I was younger that did a lot for teaching me how to just suck up a lot of stuff. I realize that the world's not designed to give you favors, and it's not going to apologize.
Yeah.
And what you want does not matter. Like the only thing that matters about what you want is to yourself. No one else really cares, you know? So it's like the world doesn't want to listen to your wish list. So, you know, everyone wants to live in a perfect euphoria and whatnot. That's not the world we're given. You know, so you have to go out there and then do what you can to change it. And then after that, I don't know. I don't know who the third one would be. I've had a lot of really great influential people, and my mother has been a huge influence to me. And, you know, I've had a decent amount of negative influencers, but I don't want to like acknowledge that. But you do learn from that.
Oh yeah.
You should absolutely acknowledge that you learn from the bad times as much as the good.
Absolutely.
But I on a professional level, Todd Ford, the co-founder of the brewery, set a precedent of operations and seriousness and mindset that can't be valued. You can't quantify it. You know, because I had a very laissez-faire like way of looking at how to make beer and all that sort of stuff, and he liked what I made and everything, and was making similar styles and whatnot. But when it came to when we were running the business, there was a level that he expected that he was a pilot at the time. So he's like, we were running this like it's an airline. And it took a lot of time, and it was frustrating and all that sort of stuff. But like the best lessons you learn are because they are not comfortable. And he was very steadfast in making sure not only that we, you know, met those standards, but we also held ourselves to it going forward.
Right.
You know, and so
followed the checklist.
Yes, exactly. Yep. It's important. I mean, like what he said all the time, he's like, if a brewery does not look like you could eat off the tanks, then you shouldn't be drinking the beers inside of it. And I was like, that's ridiculous. You know, it's a closed system. It doesn't matter. But then like, as we started growing and moving and stuff like that, it's like, no, this makes sense because this all starts on the outside and works its way in, you know, so.
Well, you know, I've always been impressed here, especially as large of a system as this is. It's always pristine.
Thank you very much. And we have some really, again, it's the mindset. We have really great people working here, and they catch on to it really quick that, you know, we personally take offense if stuff's not looking right. You know, like we want any afternoon if we have a random group of people to show up and someone up front's like, hey, I'll bring you in the back. We want them to come in the back and be like, oh my God, this is great looking, you know? Because when we come in, if there is no one that comes back in the back later on, and we come in the next day, we want to be excited to brew in it. You know, we don't want to look at crud all over the ground. I mean, obviously, if you're having crouse and blow off, and it happens, you know, but you're actively trying to get everything as clean as possible, you know. So you really make a nice red carpet for the yeast to show a lot.
That's awesome. Tell me, what's a common myth about your job?
That it's sexy in any way. A lot of people think it's like a rock star job, and a lot of people think that we literally drink beer all day and stuff. So like we do QA/QC stuff, but as you know, quality control. So because if you don't do it, then people will let you know when something goes south.
Oh yeah.
But it's not like it's fun. We usually like incubate and torture our beers. So a lot of the stuff that we drink is literally like beer that's gone bad. So we know when it goes bad. But a lot of people think that it's like this really, I don't know, like rock star sort of. I guess it's kind of that because it's kind of the same line as like a chef, as in like you get a lot of credit for like, oh, brewmaster Chad did XYZ. And like, it's fun, but like you're also getting hit with yeast and, you know, grain dust all over you and all that sort of stuff. It's a lot more physical than I think a lot of people think it is. And the hours are not forgiving at all. And I think the biggest misconception that people have is how many lifelines we have going in. So entire production can stop if our glycol cooler goes down. Entire production can stop if our CO2 tank has a leak. Or entire production can stop if our power goes out, pretty obviously. If water goes down or water pressure goes down, we're done. If the boiler goes down, we're done. Like there's so many lifelines that all have to be functioning at high capacity for the brewery to run. A lot of people don't realize, like, if one thing drops, you're done. you have to stop for the day. So
what's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your role today, and how are you tackling it?
My role, the biggest challenge I have is trying to find some sort of answer for the upcoming unforeseeable future of beer and how we are starting to go down this weird decline right now. Not us just as NoDa, but like the industry itself. Actually, in reality, we're saying pretty good as far as comparison, as far as a lot of other breweries are in the industry and whatnot. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we're reaping any benefits from it. It just means that we're not having to make really bad adjustments. We've already have to do a bunch of adjustments, but and ones that have been pretty hard. For me though, the biggest issue that I have is trying to find that answer. What can I offer to the market that's going to turn it around? You know, so I'm not involved in sales. I have to just make the thing for them to sell. So it all kind of trickles down.
Right.
And so every year I try to have some sort of like innovation. Some things stick, some things don't, and, it was 2 years ago when we came out of CBC, we were convinced that, every bar that we went into had Italian Pilsners and they had cold IPAs. They're like, all right, that's going to hit. That's going to be the thing. Everyone west of the Mississippi's got these in spades. So it's going to come to North Carolina, and we're going to go ahead and make them. And we made them, and a lot of other breweries did those sorts of styles too. Right. And they were fine, but they didn't hit with the impact that you saw everywhere else. So sometimes you think you see a trend and it just may not hit over that curve. And also my big challenge is honestly trying to figure out what can I offer up that innovates something in the market, whether it's an old style or it's a new thing, or it's a new way of doing something that's not only going to really impact the market to where it adds to our portfolio, not kill off something else. If I made another great hazy IPA, does that just means it just replaces Radio Haze and kills Radio Haze and does the same role as Radio Haze? It's like, I want something to add on to it. Little Slurp has been one of the biggest successes that we've done. And the Cheerwine, honestly, has been one of the biggest successes that we've done. Because they've added to the portfolio and helped it grow. And I was terrified that Little Slurp was going to dissolve radio or hurt hop drop sales, and thankfully it didn't do either. Those are the goals I have, and that's great that I've been able to do those, because when we're over a decade old, people have really been used to our lineup, and we have to constantly look at what stays on the line and what goes on the line. And I was talking to my wife actually last night about that. And she's like, why can't you just keep all the beers around and everything? And I was like, well, if you think about it right now, our year-round lineup's like 11 beers. I was like, no one gives you 11 slots at the grocery store on the taps and stuff like that. It's like, and that's not our seasonals, and that's not our, our special one-offs, and it gives no room for collabs, and gives no room for innovation and stuff. So my big challenge right now is to intelligently innovate, not just for something that I think is going to be a good tasting beer, but for something that's going to add to our portfolio in a productive way, and accelerate us to another market populace and whatnot. So, and it's hard to do that because, go on any, go look up any style guideline. There's so many styles, there's so many ways to make beer, I think beer definitely is the most diverse, variation of how to actually produce the product in the entire alcohol beverage lineup and whatnot. It's just, you can just do so many weird, crazy things with it. But that being said, and despite the innovation that people are constantly coming up with, whether it be in hops or it be in yeast or it be in process, like, you still are ultimately looking at how do you get grain juice fused with hops and then fused with other stuff. So you only have so many options to combine together. And this, it's one of those things where I'm constantly trying, and I beat myself up a lot on it. I'm just constantly like, what can I make to pull us out and get us ahead and pull, help lead an example for the industry to go forward with. So,
and I really thought cold IPA was going to be that new trend as well.
Yeah, I really thought it was going to kick off pretty well. I like them. I think they're good.
Yeah.
I tried to make Southeastern IPA a thing. So,
actually, I like that one.
Yeah, I like it a lot. And
was that True Grit?
It was True Grit. It was Southern Love, and we also did Directionally Challenged.
Oh, okay.
And we did Corn Star, which was tentatively doing a imperial version that I called Hardcore Chronography, but it never made it to the production line. So
awesome. I don't know. There might still be a chance for cold IPA come spring or summer.
Yeah, you never know.
What's the most important lesson that you've learned of your career?
To be flexible. You have to be flexible. There's you learn that early on in the career because the idea of a 9 to 5 is out the window. You got to be here when you're needed, and you got to stay until you're not needed. And you're going to need to come in all sorts of different hours if you want to have invested ownership in it. Like if you're going to try to play creative, and if you're going to try to own the business, you have to be able to understand that this is your house and this is your family. And I was very lucky when we started. I was 27 years old when we started. I always say, like, I was 27 years old when I got my dream job, and I lost a lot of relationships from that. And rightfully so, because this was my first and foremost love, and it was the home that I was trying to build and all that sort of stuff. So you have to sacrifice your time. Your time is not that important when you're in that early infancy stage. And as you get older and as you develop and you realize like how to manifest a more feasible schedule and how to make it a more professional environment and all that sort of stuff, you have to realize that the market's going to flex. So you have to be able to adjust to what accounts are going to want. And as you start to grow, you have to start to be able to flex on not only how do we make the product what we want, but how do we make it fit the portfolio that we're trying to make it play in the environment. Then when you start adding more people into it, you have to be flexible. Like, how do these people learn? That's one of the hardest things I've had to deal with, is I learn in a very specific way and I explain in a very specific way. Not everyone learns how I learn. So it's been very challenging to teach, the brewing philosophies and things like that to up and coming, very tenacious and like-minded people, but may have a completely different learning process than I do, so you have to be flexible to try to figure out, again, like my dad taught me, and it's like you don't know people. They're not all the same mentality as you. You have to get to know them and everything.
Yep, absolutely.
So there's that, but then on another level too, there's a stigma that like every beer is your baby, and they absolutely are. You should take pride in your beers and all that sort of stuff. But if one of your babies isn't pulling its weight, you got to kick them off. You got to get them off the train. And I've said bye to a ton of beers I've been super proud about, and I mean, Southern Love's one of them, like Southern Love / True Grit, they're the same beer, just different branding on them. And that's not saying that beer will never come back, but it didn't come back in 2023, and so we'll see what 2024 lines up. But, you have to be able to go, what's best for the market, for our business, and for this industry. And every brewer wants to make every single type of beer on the planet. Most of them. Unless they're like stuck in like, this is the only style that we do. Period.
Well,
that's fine.
They don't stay that way for long.
Yeah. It's like most brewers want to test themselves, Yeah. And you have to be flexible enough to say at some point, like, these were fun, but if they don't have a place, you got to shrug them off. Right. This is what it is.
Cool. So in your opinion, what do you think is the most important personality trait or strength that someone needs to be successful in this industry?
I would say an open mind and a level head. I think is one of the best things, because you're going to be dealing with a lot of different people and a lot of different personalities, and you have to be and I'm not good at it, to be honest with you. I get very passionately like blown out of proportion a lot of times, and stuff's not going the right way. But being able to be calm under pressure and being able to think critically when things are not going the way that you want them to is a skill that very few people have. And I'm really good when things are really bad. And I don't know where that comes from personally, but I've had a lot, whenever in my life, when something really bad's happened, or I'm on the way to the hospital, or I'm on the way to a police station or something like that, I'm like completely calm. And it's like, it's fine, let's get this done. Like, let's just like we're in hazard mode. And if something really bad happens in the production side here, it's fine. But it's like if a delivery is not showing up, it's like, are you kidding me? I lose my mind. Yeah. But when you're dealing with a lot of different personalities and you're dealing with people that are working their butts off for you and everything like that, and they all have the same goal, they just all have different perspectives of it. You got to be even keel on everything. I mean, it would be open-minded on stuff. Not only allows you to receive the different inputs from all your different staff members, you also have the ability to receive the information from all your different departments. Because one thing that is a stigma that I've learned kind of exists in craft beer is there tends to be departmental, not rivalries, but like headbutting, because sales and marketing never seem to hear what production says and vice versa. It's like it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But the reality of it is like you can make the best beer in the world, but those salespeople don't get it out there.
Yeah.
No one's going to know about it, So you have to be able to drop your guard down and realize that like talking production stuff versus someone talking sales numbers, they're not good. You're just going to be screaming gibberish at each other. You have to be able to drop it down and really listen to what they have to say and then try to implement that as much as you can on your end. And it goes both ways on that. So no matter which way you want to try to implement that, which side of the line you stand on, it's always good to just try to realize where the other person's coming from on it, because you both ultimately want the company to succeed.
Oh yeah.
If the company fails, it's like, it's not because of just one person just like standing there around, like, you guys both want everything to work out. And it's just you need to be able to receive the information, even though it's coming in a different wavelength.
Awesome. So what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's wanting to start out in this industry?
I would definitely look at what your market needs and what you think you can provide in a way that it doesn't stretch out your boundaries or underserve your facility you have to go through. There's a lot of different factors. I think a lot of people like want to start to be a brewmaster or start a brewery up because they make a good product, and then they don't know how that product's going to manifest. Some places, if you find the right spot, could be the greatest thing that entire community could ever experience, because you found good foot traffic, you invested in like a 3-barrel brew house, you did 95% of your stuff in-house only, and you had a small but very competent staff, and you just rake it in, and you're like this gym in this entire community, right? But you need a lot of X factors for that. You could also, on the other hand, be in a really large metropolitan area that has a ton of different grocery stores and venues and everything like that. And you need a very industrialized production space, and you need to make efficient production going on. And you need to invest in packaging, and you need to invest in trucks, or you need to invest in a delivery or a distribution network and whatnot. You need to know how are you going to fit in the cosmos of what you're trying to operate in, and there's no one answer. It's just the best successes I've seen are people that are right time and right place. And that place part of it's a big thing. That place dictates on how are you going to represent your brand and what scale it's going to be. Because you can be successful in the beer industry on a 3-barrel system or 1.5-barrel system and a 500-barrel system. It just depends on how you play whatever the realm that you try to sell your product in, whether it's just your neighborhood or it's internationally. But in order to truly like capitalize on the potential of what you have to understand what you're trying to go for. Most of the places I see fail, they set up a brew house that's designed to do, grocery sales and multi-county distribution or even statewide distribution, and they intend it to be a tap room. Or they set up a tap room, brew house, and a small front of sales, and then they have no capacity to fill any sort of like actual grocery demands or distributor demands and stuff like that. When you set up in the wrong environment, the cards are already stacked against you. So you have to kind of understand like where you set in your cosmos or environment or whatever, your sphere.
And and I feel that's one of the reasons why Charlotte has been a successful beer city, is because there was plenty of industrial spaces up for grabs.
There's a high variety of either one of those ideas.
When textiles started to go away, there were plenty of places that were up for grabs.
100%. Yeah, our original spot is an old textile mill. So and this place was a vinegar factory for a long time.
Oh, really?
Yep. So I get Acetobacter nightmares all the time. Thankfully, I haven't had any Acetobacter issues so far, thankfully.
Awesome. So what's one lesson your job has taught you that you feel that everyone should learn in their life at some point?
I think everyone should learn in their life at some point. I think there's probably I'm only taking time because I think that's a really good question. I don't want to cop out on it. Yeah. But I'd say I'm literally debating, like flipping a coin between like, should I go like cynical with it or something? I honestly think I really think that it's I think that the one thing that I think that this industry has taught me that I think everyone should learn is that you can work as hard as you possibly can, but working smarter and working with a goal in mind will always trump killing yourself. Because for when we started out, I had this mentality of I need to earn this. I didn't go to school for brewing or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and especially being a young 20s person, I was like, how is anyone going to take me seriously if I don't have a certificate that says I know anything? This stuff, So when Todd and Susie asked me to be a brewer, I was like, I'll do everything you guys need me to do. I'll just give me the crappiest work to build the place out. Give me the shovel, give me the sledgehammer, give me whatever. I'll do whatever it needs to do, and that worked to get me a self-respect, in the company and whatnot, because I know I put in the time for it. But ultimately, just because you beat yourself to death trying to get to a goal or trying to just to move the ball forward, it doesn't mean that you know where it's heading. So working smarter and thinking about stuff in the future and then trying to plan accordingly is going to get you so much better and so much further down the road than just trying to put in the gut wrench work. And I grew up somewhat once I got the concept of work ethic down, with like this kind of like hammering idea, it's like to the point where, it's, do you deserve to rest? Did you work hard enough to rest? Did you work hard enough to eat? Did you work hard enough to earn that? It's like this whole like idea of like only the good stuff comes after you've suffered enough, Right. And I think a lot of people go through that in life and everything. And, it's everything from like working out and dieting or, just trying to hit like random goals like that. Like you just feel like you have to just, slam into yourself over and over again and just callous up for it. And then you can breathe. And the reality of it is that just burns the fuse out on both sides, so when if you're going to go through if you're going to have any sort of goal that you reach, define the goal and define a smart way to get to it. Don't just hustle and hustle and hustle, because at one point you're not going to be able to hustle anymore. And at one point, there's going to be other people around you that just feel like, well, if you just did this thing, then you can get there just as fast. I'm like, why are they even doing this thing? So yeah, while there's value in getting sweaty and bruised and cut up and everything like that. And I definitely think that's a good thing to feel. It doesn't apply in every environment, obviously. Right. But just doing the hours and just running yourself ragged doesn't necessarily get you to where you need to go. Trying to think intelligently about how to be the most efficient way to get there and really define the goal and all those little steps along the way. Yeah, that's the best thing you can do.
Awesome. That's great, man. Thanks. So what's one thing about your field of expertise that no one agrees with you about?
I don't think you need to dry hop beers at absurd rates in order for them to be delicious. So yeah. I definitely think that there's a point where you have diminishing returns. I don't know where that line is, but I definitely think that it exists. And I think that when you're coming down to sustainable products that repeat over and over again, it's going in absurd dry hopping rates. Speaking specifically of IPAs, you're just causing price hikes and massive losses and things of that nature. And I always go back to, if you look at the hop book from Stan Hieronymus, he documents a panel that they had at CBC. I don't remember the year. I think it was 2000. It could be 2009 or 2010 or something like that. And they had a panel of brewers from Stone, New Belgium, Sierra Nevada, Russian River. Some pretty good breweries.
I was going to say.
And they asked, like, at that time, like, what was the average dry hop level that you guys did on IPAs? And the average dry hopping was like 0.7 pounds per barrel. Like negligible dry hopping by today's standards. And I think Stone and Russian River were saying that they do some of their beers at like 1.5 or 1.2 pounds per barrel, you know? And I'm just like, you know, yeah. That's usually enough to get it going. Yeah. But now you're hearing like, we do 7 pounds per barrel of dry hops. I'm like, that's cool, I guess. But like, that's why your freaking 4-pack's $35, you know? So, you know, it's, and yeah, you definitely do taste those really high dry hopping characteristics and whatnot. But I don't think that it takes the level that a lot of people are throwing.
Yeah.
And the sacrifice, I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze. No pun intended.
Yeah.
Like that, so.
So what's your favorite productivity hack?
The best one that we have is our dry hopping method that we do. Honestly, like, we have a hop cannon. I mean, it's not that advanced or anything like that, but you know, when we were in the smaller stages, we were just funnel methoding. So we would just dump dry hops down the dry hop port in the tank, and then rouse up the beer from the racking arm. Now, mostly we bought it for safety measures because dry hopping 120 and 240 barrel fermenters is a lot of risk. So we have this like wheelable 7.5 barrel canister that has a fan in it, and we basically can purge it out, flood it in with beer from the racking arm, throwing hops in pellet wise, and then just mixing it. And you can look through this little window and see when the hops have all broken down, they become like a soup. And so you know that the oils are all broken up and everything like that. And then we just pressurize it and shoot it right back in through the racking arm. So you get it mixed in really well, and it just works really efficiently.
Awesome. So what's a underrated tool or tools that is indispensable for your job?
Definitely an adjustable wrench. This is very important.
Yeah,
I definitely, one of my favorite things, honestly, is the almighty spray bottle. Can't ever have enough spray bottles. So we use isopropyl alcohol, 70%. And that's what we use to do spot sanitization on everything, and do sanitize our sample ports and things like that. So I can't ever find enough of them. Like I wish every single tank had one of them on there. So
yeah,
those are wonderful. We have one. I mean, it's not a cheap tool, but one thing that's really nice for us, we have a floor cleaner Zamboni, a little pusher Zamboni.
Okay, it
really, really helps out, especially when you're on this. I mean, our production side over here is about 1,200 square feet, so there's a lot of floor.
Yeah,
and trying to squeegee and mop all that is a nightmare. So actually having a Zamboni to go around is pretty nice, because again, cleanliness is where everything starts.
So if you could start a business tomorrow, what would it be?
I would say another brewery, even though I think that's a horrible idea with the saturation with it. But this is what I want to do, you know? Right. So if I had to start a business tomorrow and I wasn't already a co-owner here, I would try to find a location that was in need of a brewery, and probably try to make a really small, hyper-localized brewery. My wife's a writer, so possibly do it kind of like a combination of like a bookstore, like wine and bottle shop / small brewery lounge. I think that those are really kind of magical spots with especially with wine shops and bottle shops.
Yes,
mixed together. I really think there's a lot of opportunity for people that are really into wine that don't normally venture into beer, and a lot of people who are into beer and don't normally venture into wine. And then you could even take it a step further and make it kind of like also a pseudo speakeasy. But I think you would need to put that in a place that's not well serviced for it, you know?
Yeah.
Actually, I just moved up to Harrisburg, just right up the road. And one thing we don't really have up there is like a wine bottle shop. And I was like, I think that one of these lots needs to have one of those really badly, because we have some really cool bottle shops and small breweries up there and everything like that. But like, there's no place for anyone who's really into wine to really go and have a true bottle shop experience and whatnot. So, and I'm not that into wine personally. I do like it and whatnot, but I don't know the brands and stuff like that. But I do see the value in having like a nice mix of, multiple different apertures of relaxation, so to speak. So I would like to do some small scale thing. But again, it's just because that's what I know and that's what I'm invested in right now. So I'm also really interested in the health industry as well. It's just one of those things where I would feel more confident starting up a small brewery than I would be trying to just jump back into the medical industry. Sort of thing. So, and I honestly don't know. I would love to work for I wouldn't start a business up with this, but I would love to loop in with a lab that tested like athletic performance of some sort or rehabilitation performance or something like that. So I love doing the R&D stuff here at the brewery and then transferring that over to my enjoyment of the more physical, physiology and whatnot.
Okay. And then that may lead into this next question is, what occupation other than your own would you like to try?
Well, I've already worked in the medical industry and whatnot. So, but I would like to go back in. I think that would be a good one to go back into, especially rehabilitation. Occupational therapy has always been a thing that I've really enjoyed. I love the idea of the neuromuscular development chains into when it comes down to rehab. I love like athletic training and whatnot. But despite my broken body that and everything like that, I like the idea that, my dad was a musician and everything like that, but I have no profitable musical talents or anything of that nature. So
I would be a metalhead.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, being a fan of music doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to be able to perform in front of it.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I would like the idea of anything theater or acting wise. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be really fun. I like to perform if I have a good character to jump into, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. What safeguards do you all have in place to make sure that people don't become dependent upon the product?
As far as like our staff or so we have basically we have outreach programs built in to the company that's free. So it's basically free counseling.
Awesome.
We regulate our allotment to all of our staff members every day. So if they do want to seek more of the product, they can only have a certain amount on our tap rooms watch. So we're not feeding it into them.
Right.
And then after that, we also have, this isn't directly for it, I guess, but we have full medical coverage as well on top of the counseling and everything. And then a lot of it is just kind of culture of just like preaching the whole being safe. If we have for example, on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday, so 2 days from now, we have our holiday party, and we'll have like Uber codes and like, hey, don't drive, do the Uber and blah blah blah. Right. And so and we also have standards too, which are not unique to us, but they're pretty industry wide on as far as like DUI policies and things of that nature. So people know in our company up front that like if you're going to have an issue when it comes down to substance abuse, then it's going to highly jeopardize your future / ability to do your job with the company and whatnot. Yes. Yeah, so those sorts of things are what we have to kind of implement. Thankfully, we haven't had a large history of it, but it is one of those things that like it is the kind of the dark side, like forbidden word in the industry and whatnot that everyone's kind of afraid of. And honestly, as being a brewery, like you face it every day, right? Because you're always, because we live in this bubble where like craft beer is such a norm, and for 20 years of my life, that was a fairly normal thing. And not everyone exists in that world, and a lot of people like vehemently disagree with the idea of it being a normal thing.
In that world,
I didn't at all. So it's one of those things where like I always have to kind of introspectively think of like, as much as I love all this, like, is this going too far? Am I enjoying it too much, or am I being responsible still? And thankfully, my son coming into the world has really helped. Put a lot of stuff in perspective. My wife's put a ton of stuff in perspective. And as much as I still love it, it's not as pinnacle. I remember when I was younger, like I have to go to this event. I have to get the like. It was gonna somehow make my life a more amazing experience because and it was all for the sake of seeking that special one thing or whatever, you know. So like it wasn't as much as like I need to go and get a beer here. It was more like I need to get this one specific super rare XYZ, you know. So but it's one of those things you always have to keep yourself in check in it. And it's difficult sometimes because it just becomes so much part of your day-to-day life that stuff gets mundane and you just get used to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we keep those measures in case things get out of hand and whatnot. I think I have addiction and stuff in my family, not from my parents or anything like that, but like I think I've been interested in it because of my relationship to it and all. But one of the things that I like hearing about as far as why people fall down that road and whatnot. And obviously I'm not a professional of this at all, but like this was a professional's idea, is that like a lot of people turn to substance supplementation to their life because of things not being fulfilled in their life, just trying to like filling voids and whatnot. And I feel like having counselors available and whatnot is a really good way, besides just having disciplinary like actions in your company available, but actually having people fully onto like, hey, if you're having a hard time, these are people to, because that's when people turn to stuff. It may not be that they're having a hard time because they're drinking too much or they're taking XYZ too much or anything. It may be because stuff in their life is falling apart.
Absolutely.
You know, and the only thing they know how to do is to just try to intake something that's going to give them some sort of sensation.
Yep.
And that's where it starts spiraling out of control because it becomes self-medication.
Right.
And I really think that having the counseling system set up as a free access point for everyone in the company is a good thing to try. It's not going to solve it necessarily,
right?
But it's something to try to safeguard against it.
They have somewhere they know they can turn.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
All righty. So, what are the 3 best beers that you've had in the past year?
The past year, man, there's been a few. I'll tell you, I'll give you my 3 favorite ones that I've had outside of our company and 3 favorite ones I've had inside. So inside of it, I actually in the tank right over here, my Trials and Tripolations is my Belgian Tripel that we're gonna keg up here in a little bit. I'm hoping to put it to World Beer Cup. I'm a huge fan of Belgian Tripels. I absolutely love those beers.
Yes.
And then I would say our Slurp Surfing is one of my favorite beers we've done in a long time. And this year we did a Helles lager called Carry On Helles that I absolutely adored. And we're actually going to scale it up to a seasonal this year.
Okay.
Keep forgetting we're already in 2024.
Yeah.
Outside of the
I missed that one. I love a good Helles lager.
Oh man, it's so good. Yeah, we'll do at least a couple turns on the big production batch for it. So it was called Carry On. I think we're going to keep that name, but we may change the name. But it's our Helles lager is what we're going to do for it. And yeah, I'm a huge fan of German beers in general. But outside the company, Heretic Anthem from Devil's Logic was so freaking amazingly good. That's an amazing IPA. For those that are in the Charlotte area, Devil's Logic, I think, is the most underrated brewery in the greater Charlotte area.
You know, I would tend to agree.
Yeah, I think they do just really, really great stuff across the board. And they make some just solid IPAs and lots of solid beers in general.
Yeah.
But the
Community
Heretic
Kolsch was one of my favorites.
Yeah, Community Kolsch is great. Control Alt is fantastic. They had a great fest beer this year as well. But the Heretic Anthem, one being named after a Slipknot song, is pretty cool. but the beer itself was so amazingly good.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite IPAs of the year. At the Great American Beer Festival, one of my favorite breweries, period, is Breakside Brewing Company. And they won gold for their barley wine. And it was one of their, I think it's called Life. They basically did this whole series where they did multiple different versions of the barley wine, and it was just hand selected base grain from different base grain suppliers that they had. And it was just a huge payload of that. And I guess they boiled it for an absurd amount of time, and that was it. There was no specialty grains or anything. It was like a single malt barley wine, and it won gold at GABF. And I got to try it at GABF, and I was like, "Yep, I can see why that won gold. This is the best barley wine I ever had in my life."
Yeah.
And then I guess the third
sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was so good. The third and final one, I'll do a shout out to my new local spot. But Percent Tap House has a what do you call it? A fest beer on that's I just can't remember the name of it. But I'm drinking the crap out of it every time I go up there. It's a local spot for me. They're literally a mile away from my house, but it's my go-to all the time for it. So I'll give them a go. So they have a hazy up there that's a double dry hopped hazy called Instant Crush, and it's super great, just dependable 7% alcohol hazy IPA. But yeah, if you're ever in the area, they're the little 3.5 barrel system, sell pretty much exclusively in the tap room and on. They're really great people. So
yeah, I haven't been up there in a while. It's probably been shortly after they opened. So.
Yeah, so they've scaled their whole. They used to have like a 1 barrel homebrew system. Now they have a 3.5 barrel system. They got like 20 something beers on draft. Great locals over there too. Nice. We literally that's another thing that needs to happen in the industry, in my opinion, is the redevelopment of the third place. So back in the like early 1900s all the way through like the 60s, there was this constant concept of the third place. So you would have your home, you would have your work, and then you would have some tertiary place where your community all met, right? And for a lot of people, that was back in the day, that was the church, and then a lot of people, it was the tavern or a local like
the restaurant,
the public house, you know. And with the advent of the TV and especially like syndicated television and stuff like that, people stayed home more and more and more and more. And now that we have our phones having TV on them, essentially, you know, a lot of people don't get that community. And when they go out to other areas, they sit on their phone for so much.
Yep.
When my wife and I moved over to Harrisburg, like we literally, in so many spots, we'll be like, well, we can't meet up with anybody. You know, everyone's tied up. Let's just go over and do XYZ. And we just happen to run into people. Usually it helps too, because we have an adorable kid with us, but you just start meeting people left and right. And our dedicated third spot is Percent Tap House, because like we can go in there with no plans to meet anybody and guarantee, even if it's just the bartenders there, we're going to have a good conversation. We'll hang out there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and just have a beer or two and just hang out on the couches. And just people that walk in, like, well, even if we know them or if we've seen them one time there before, we see them all the time, like you just start talking and all that sort of stuff. And that idea of like that area to go to not be on your phone all the time and to have a beer or some food or whatever you have and just talk to people and interact, I think is sorely missing. And it took us moving to like a smaller town, despite being around so much less volumes of people, you get so much more quality interaction going on. And I think, and that's what got me into the beer industry to begin with, was that ability to talk to people that I wouldn't normally talk with, because I had that little liquor. I'm actually normally a big introvert, and beer is like one of those few things I get comfortable around. And so going in, I would talk to someone that I wouldn't normally like ever look at twice, you know, because I had, you know, the beverage as a commonality or whatnot. So people need to bring that back a little bit.
Yeah,
I think.
beer brings people together.
Absolutely. That's the point. It's a bonding agent.
Yeah. And Percent Tap House is, that's part of a bigger shopping area.
Yeah, it's the main street of Harrisburg. Okay. Yeah, so they have a couple bars and restaurants and stuff like that around there. Oddly enough, right across like the parking like strip from them is my son's daycare. So it's super convenient. Yeah. So we have a whole bunch of new parents that actually meet over there like every Friday. Nice. And just grab a beer and hang out. Awesome. Yeah.
So was there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I would have?
No, you asked some good ones, some ones I've never been asked before. Okay, so you stumped me a couple of times. So.
Absolutely. You know, and this podcast is more intended for people who are in the industry. Right. So, I mean, it's about industry people for industry people. So
I appreciate that. I want to
do something a little bit different than, you know, just, hey, what's this beer?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So,
excellent.
All right. The last question, where can people find you online?
Well, I'm personally Beer Mad Chad on Instagram, and Chad at NoDaBrewing.com is my email. So if you have any random questions, you can always ask me there. Our company is NoDaBrewing.com, and then any sort of NoDaBrewing.x or Instagram and whatnot. So
we're NoDa Brewing.
Yeah, at NoDa Brewing. We do have a pretty strong social media presence and whatnot. We do a bunch of different events here. We do a lot of charity events. But we also do a new beer every single week. Sometimes we do them twice a week. So we always have something going on. So if you're in the area or if you haven't been by in a little while and you want to see what's going on, it's easy to find out.
Yep.
And I'm an open book with stuff. I believe in transparency and everything. I feel like if you pay money to consume a thing I make, you should probably know what I did to make it. So if there is any brewers out there or any home brews or whatever that have a question for something, I mean, I'm not saying I'm an authority on anything absolutely at all, but I have a fair amount of experience with stuff and I'll do my best to answer it. So, or tell you my experiences with it and whatnot. So I didn't get here because people were secretive to me. I got here because a lot of people were really open and helped me out along the way. So you got to remember how you started on stuff. So
very good. All right. Well, thank you, Chad, so much for being on this episode of Behind the Beer.
Thank you for having me.
We will talk to you again very soon.
I hope so. Thanks a lot. Cheers, then.
Cheers.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Behind the Beer. Please rate and review us on your favorite listening platform. Subscribe to us on YouTube at youtube.com/@behindthebeer. If you would like to be a guest on Behind the Beer, email us at behindthebeer2020@gmail.com. Behind the Beer is produced by BWM Productions.